Hello sociologists! It's been a while, and in the last video I started and then stopped abruptly, and I apologised because the animations were broken, the work on interviews, that's it. And I will return to that. But one thing I was keen to do, and I wanted to do it on this lesson because it fits the rhythm better, is another question. You've now mostly, I hope, not only submitted your answers on field experiments, but also received some helpful feedback. So it is about time that I move on and we use that to do the other type of question. Now in paper 1 on education and research methods, you will do two sections, I guess. You will have 4 questions on, is it 4 questions? Yeah, it is 4 questions on education as you've been doing, Mr. Cuthbert. And then following that, there'll be 2 further questions, one of which you've already been introduced to, the idea of applying a research method to a specific area of educational research. So you just did the 2017 paper, an actual exam, looking at field experiments being applied specifically to labelling. And you'll remember that it was a 20-mark question, which is similar to what we've been doing in families and households, in the idea that you've got an introduction, you've got a conclusion, and you've got around about 3 or 4 paragraphs where you make a point, you back it up with evidence, you explain why that evidence is relevant to the point you are making, and then you link it back to the question as to why it answers the question. So Rosenthal and Jacobs got used quite a lot. You could use others, but you had to be very careful how, because a lot of them weren't specific to education, or if they weren't necessarily specific to labelling. And what you then had to do is extrapolate outwards based on what you know about labelling as to how that might make a difference. You couldn't get away with just generally applying the context, though that did help. It got you sort of past into band 3 at least. If you didn't evaluate though, you were pretty much trapped otherwise. So you needed to give both sides, a bit like we do in families and households, where you go, these are the problems, but there's also positives, or here are the positives, but there's also a problem. As long as you've got an example or something specific to refer to, you get away with that, and then you can build it into the next paragraph. In an ideal world, each paragraph links to the one that follows, but I appreciate that's not always going to be possible. So you're saying, you're rambling a lot, get to the point. And I go, oh, sorry. By this point, you've looked on Show My Homework, and you know that the next question is up. However, this is a sample question 6. So if I do, no, that won't work, that. You can now see the sample question 6 that I have put together. Now this isn't a previous exam question. I went and had a look, and it involves theory as well as methods. Now we haven't done a lot on theories yet. We've mentioned them in passing, but we haven't looked at the theories. And a lot of the past paper questions involve theories rather than methods. That said, there were a couple on methods. We couldn't do those because we haven't done those methods yet. So it involved, well, there were 3 different methods I found, plus 1 theory, in the 4 years of papers that are available. However, none of those methods we've looked at, so it would be unfair to expect you to do them. And the theory one, as I said, you could probably have a go at, but it would be a bit mean to throw you into that without any further support. So, I took one of the existing methods questions and adapted it slightly. You can now see it on the screen. It says outline and explain 2 theoretical disadvantages of using questionnaires in sociological research. Note, it does not say anything about education. So you'll notice each section we've done so far, experiments and questionnaires, we started with the general overview of what it is to be a sociological research method, the pluses and minuses, and then we went into the specific method in context. This question, worth only 10 marks. So what? You're looking at 2 paragraphs, 2 peels. It's a joke I keep telling. That I think the sociologist group know. Those that I teach sociology know what the joke is. Imagine someone with an orange in a very bad 1990s club. There's an extra E if you want it for evaluation. I'll come back to this. So you'll notice that it narrows down what you've got to write about. This one says 2 theoretical disadvantages. Now you remember when we did questionnaires that we went through the theory last. The theory was the second T in pervert. Wait, second T? the first T, the only T in pervert. And you'll notice that in the disadvantages, it was coloured red, there were several different lines of evidence, several different things you could bring out. And each one of those counts as a separate theoretical problem. There were 3 in total. I won't name them here, you've got them in your notes. And this asks you to outline and explain 2 of those. Peace, man. But 2. 2. And Turtle's finger. No, wait. Live long and prosper. Turtle's fingers. So 2. Sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. Your job is to do as you would in families and households, and presumably as you do in education as well, and set out 2 Peel paragraphs talking about those problems. So you name it at the top, that's your P, then you give an example of that, and I think they all came with examples, even if it's a for instance rather than an actual example study. You then throw that in. Now, with the work we've been doing on general things like questionnaires, you do have some examples to prove the point. You might say, sir, not in that box I don't. And I say, all right, you're right, rhetorical device. Don't get cocky. But you'll find evidence of other questionnaires that have been used in studies elsewhere in your notes. You could then bring those to the theoretical table quite easily. Once you know what the theory is, you can pick an example from earlier on in your notes and explain why that illustrates the theoretical problem that you are trying to show. In many ways. I think I did the same in the notes when I was babbling on the screen. So, go back and watch again, I guess. Ugh. It's almost as bad as like and subscribe. Don't do that. I mean, you can if you want. I can't stop you, but I'm not a YouTuber, he says, being totally a YouTuber. Where is the thing that allows me to move down? I don't know, so I'll cheat. There it is. So it says here, and you've got it on the Word file that I've attached to show my homework so you can read it for yourself. Below I've put a mark scheme. Now the mark scheme I picked was the one with functionalism as the focus, and when you go down you will see quite clearly that it talks a lot about using functionalism and your knowledge of functionalism. Other than that, the marks are exactly the same as what we've been doing in families and households for 10 markers, and you're used to this by now. So basically what it's saying is, do you know your stuff? Can you give more than one example of the stuff that you know? And can you explain it? The better you explain it, the higher you go. If the explanation is good, and you have a relevant example to illustrate that is linked to that explanation, and that both of them are linked to the question, hence Peel, then you're looking at a band 3 answer between 8 and 10 marks. But you need 2 points to get there. If you just do one band 3 style mark, then you're trapped in band 2. It's just the way it works, bottom end. If you do 2 band 2 style, so you do a really good explanation with a rubbish example, or a really good example but a rubbish explanation, and you do that twice, then you're in band 2. And if you do one of those, rubbish explanation but with a good example, or a good explanation with a rubbish example, but the other one's a band 3, then it moves into band 3. That's how it works. So band 1 is random things that don't necessarily connect, or one high-level answer, but only one when it asks for 2. Yes, that's a little unfair. That's how it works. Band 2 is 2 of any quality getting better. So any quality, but they're 2, and it works, is 4. Any quality, but they're 2 and it's almost good, 5. Any quality, one's really good, one's a bit pap, 6. Then you get, they're both pretty good actually, 7. Then you get illustrated with examples, 1, 8. Illustrated with really good examples, 1, 9. Or illustrated with examples that are and explained well, that's still 9. And then both doing that with really good examples, 10. You see how it works. It builds up slowly. So that's the mark scheme. That's why I've included it, and why I included the one with functionalism, so it didn't give you the answers. Mainly because I had to make up the question. There isn't a mark scheme on an exam paper for the question I've made up. But so, you could have rewritten the mark scheme. Yes, rhetorical device, I could have done. But if you notice how the mark scheme is written, it also includes the points that, well, you'd end up using. And I don't want to preclude that. I don't want to force you down a particular avenue. But so it'll be easier. Yeah, but it won't be a good practice. You won't learn much from it, apart from structure. And structure isn't my problem here. I think you're all pretty good at that. The only issue here is practicing what you have learned. So that's why I've elected to do it this way. And hopefully the mark scheme is enough to give you a quick nudge and remind you how to do these things, because it's been a while since we've done a 10-marker like these. So in a timed exam, you don't have to do this in time conditions, but let's say you want to practice. Let's say you're like, well, you know what? I'm confident. I'm going to try it anyway. So you prepare, you go and do the reading, you know what the question's going to be, then you sit down to answer the question. A 10-mark question, generally speaking, is around about 15 minutes, thereabouts. So you'd have 15 minutes to write it. However, it's the first time you've done it on any kind of research method, and although you know the structure, you are still practicing. I would therefore recommend, but I can't enforce, that you take a little bit more time on it. You go through the notes, you take your time, you write it, you put it to one side. Now, this video is going to be very, very short. There's not a lot really to talk about. So what you do is you take the rest of the time devoted to this lesson and you prepare your answer. So I don't know, this video is probably going to end up being around about 15-20 minutes maximum. Looking at it, probably about 15. And that means using the fact that you probably double it up, going backwards and forwards and just making sure this makes sense, that you'll probably be done about half an hour in. That gives you half an hour to go and collate your notes, work out which bits you're going to use, work out where the studies are, and start trying to apply them to that theoretical problem at the end. Because there are lots of references to questionnaires being used, and I would argue that in the right hands and with the right mindset, you can totally use those to illustrate the theoretical problems. That's my thinking anyway. You only need 2 examples at the end of the day, 1 per point you are making. If you're really, really good, you can get away with 1 example, but you have to be really, really good to do that. So keep that in mind. So half an hour is more than enough time to plan an answer, work out all the examples you're going to use, and work out what it looks like. That would take you to the end of the lesson. Were we in a classroom, I would then take questions and we'd discuss it in depth. So I probably won't set, I probably could. I probably could set up a Teams meeting. You can tell that I'm recording this the day before. So what I'll do is, and by the time you've got this, there will be a Teams meeting, but you will have noticed, I hope, that it's set for half an hour into the lesson. Yeah, we'll try that. And we'll see how it goes. I'll be on from the get-go, and I'll just divert people, say, go watch the video. And then when you come back, you can ask any questions you may have as part of your preparation. That's how it's going to work. That seems fair. So if you've just been pushed out to watch this, I guess it's too late for me to mention it now. Anyway, that should do that. Hopefully that makes sense. And yeah, I don't think there's a lot else to add. There'll be an assessment that is separate. Is it assessment? No, they call it an assignment, don't they? So there'll be the usual class task, and then there'll be another green task that's got the deadline on it. How long do you have? It's always a week, so you'll have a week. That's fair. And then eventually I'll put these together, and you'll do 1 methods in context question, 1 methods and theories question separately, and you'll do them in 1 sitting, and it'll be 1 homework. So you'll have what that will be marks out of. That will be marks out of 30, rather than marks out of 20 and marks out of 10, because you'll practice both types of question. And that's about it. I shall return to structured and unstructured interviews, and the interview as a social interaction, and then applying that to education in the next week, and the next video, in fact. So, yeah, stay safe until then. I look forward to seeing you then, and have a lovely rest of your day. Bye-bye.